I'll hold my heart.
There we go.
Actually,
All right. We will call the meeting to order. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The mission of the Harrisonville Cass R9 School District is to achieve excellence in education. That is why we are here every night.
Perfect.
All right. We need to preview and approval of the agenda. We need a motion.
I'll make the motion that we approve the agenda as presented.
second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Moving on to the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Now we will move on to audience delegations.
We have 3.
Okay. Keep in mind in the audience delegations, you have about 3 minutes. We will do this in the order that they're listed. So Susan, will you read those off?
Sure.
Okay.
Mike Johnson's first.
Okay.
Wait till the last. Is that acceptable?
You also have
Okay. If there are no objections, I don't have a problem with that.
a Marcia.
Oh,
I
you're
think
on.
it's on.
It is.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank you. I want to thank Paul and Mark. I know spent a lot of time responding back to each one of my questions, and I verbally conversed with some of the school board members, and the other ones said, thank yous for my input and stuff. I also am going to apologize because I am not as prepared as I would like to be when this was put on the May agenda as informational and then stated that it would be on the June agenda for action, and it wasn't. I was kind of led to believe that it was going to be tabled for a while because Dr. Watkins was wanting Paul to get here and really get familiar with things before this was actually something that was going to be an action item, and I was just a little surprised that 17 days on the job, and we are now trying to do something about this. All right, there were several items that were answered, but I'd just like a little bit of clarification for when this is actually on the agenda. I'd ask about student chronic illnesses and to include depression, anxiety, migraines, etc. Will one doctor's excuse at the beginning of the year be sufficient for these? And one of the responses back was chronic medical issues will obviously be taken into consideration. Well, will they be approved with one doctor's note, or will they not? Because these students are not going to go every single time they're going to miss a day of school. So that was one of the things. The other thing was that there are so many pieces to the attendance policies, and that this is just one piece of the entire puzzle. Well, I would hate for so many items to still be out there that need to be discussed but haven't been discussed yet, and nobody knows what the big picture is going to look like. So I just hate for action to be taken on this without everything put into place. Okay, the committee. This is also I know in January, the board appointed Nancy and Bing to represent the board on the attendance committee. Is that my clock? Would you guys please do away with that? It used to be however long. Okay. That's.
Thank you, Marcy.
I don't agree with the not walking the graduation. There are so many unknown things I've heard they did answer before that action is taken.
Leanne Carl.
Hi, my name is Leanne Carroll, and I just would like to address, I'll go over concerns, something to consider, and a recommendation. So my concerns are not being able to walk at graduation. If you've earned a diploma through our district, you've earned the right to walk. It's a major milestone in life. I hate that to be taken away. If you realize you won't be walking, I think your attendance is really going to plummet. There was a clause stating in regards to extracurriculars that I don't see it being a problem to police for people that are in extracurriculars, any sport, any activity at all. I don't know how you would police attending it. I say that because will there be a list for somebody who is like, poor Miss Shirley, who does all the concession, or takes all the tickets? And if so, that could be a privacy issue. And will there be an admin there to have a list to say you can't come in, you can come in? My something to consider would be, I spoke with 4 different friends and family members that are either in, they're all in different districts in admin. 2 immediately had, and this is paraphrasing, very similar. In order to compare this, you can't compare districts that just have the exact same numbers of students. You have to also consider your free and reduced lunch program numbers and percentages, because that brings in a different dynamic. When they said that, I thought immediately of 2 friends of one my son, one my daughter, that were responsible for their siblings, in that when they were sick, they stayed home with them. When they had appointments, they took them to it. The parents could not afford to miss work. So with that, we have a double whammy on attendance, because now we have, instead of just 1 sick kid missing, we have 2 kids missing. Something to consider. What I'd like to suggest is maybe to catch more flies with honey by an incentive program. It happens, Becky has it at ECC. I see posts often about little celebrations. The high school, and I'm not sure when it started. My daughter had 3 different principals in 4 years, so I don't know who started it. But it's an incentive program to where good grades, good attendance, you earn more perks. I thought it would never work, but I was really wrong. My daughter, we would fight to make her stay home when she was sick, because God forbid she give up a good parking space. I mean, we wouldn't want to walk. So with that, consider maybe positive reinforcement. And I'm not saying that just for the kids. I'm an adult. I love my flying miles, my credit card points. Everybody loves a perk. So go into it with an attitude of positive, like, hey, let's earn something positive, as opposed to a negative of, if you don't do this, this will be your punishment. And I am the first to admit, every one of us here knows that attendance is important, and I'm not saying that it's not. I'm just saying maybe consider different aspects. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Leanne.
Mike?
Hello. First, thank you all for doing what you do, giving up your time. I probably have a little bit of opposite vision of what the first 2 speakers have had. I kind of deal with this stuff day to day. I'm the owner of Excalibur Contracting, local company. We're based out of Harrisonville. I would say that 99% of our employees are Harrisonville Wildcats. Some have graduated, some are still in school as a summer job. When it first came to my attention about this attendance program, I was all for it. They're not walking in graduation. I'm not gonna. That's a little scary, But the reality of life is if you don't show up to work, you're not gonna have a place to live. You're not gonna be able to feed your family. You're not gonna do that stuff. I deal every day, all year long, with kids that cannot get themselves to work every day. They have no training. I understand that I have 5 boys. One's already graduated, one's a senior. I got a sophomore, a freshman, and a 5th grader. So I understand how it all goes with having so many kids and them getting sick. And my wife's a teacher in the district. So, you know, the rules are you go to work every day no matter what. I've been in business for 14 years. I've never missed a day of work since I started my own business, because if I don't go, nothing happens. I preach that every day to my crew. You'd be surprised how many kids that come from our district cannot make it 1 week, 1 day, 1 hour. Some guys make it 1 hour and say, I got to go home. It's too hard. They don't understand how to get themselves ready and prepared to be at work or at school every single day, because once you get out of school, your mom and dad's not there to pick up, you know, the slack. So I think that being direct and being what I'll call harsh with your direction of you're not going to walk and these are the consequences for your actions, I support that 100%. I understand that there's a lot of social media drama with well, my kids, you know, have this or that or whatever. Well, the reality is that we all live in a world today that social media, you know, is a big part of, and I appreciate the opportunity to come here tonight and kind of say, listen, there's a lot more to it. Please don't focus on all the negative. Listen to what everybody has to say, and definitely holding people accountable for their actions when they're in high school is a very, very good thing for their future. In my opinion, more important than the education that they may or may not get. Because some kids may go to college, some kids may go to trade school, some kids are going to go straight into the workforce. And the number one thing that they're going to have to know how to do is get themselves up and come to work every day. Because if you can't count on your team to be there Monday through Friday, Monday through Saturday, whatever, then you won't be a part of the team. And everybody knows that the bill's still done. Thank you all. It's a great day to be Wildcat.
Thank you.
All right. We will move on to our partner organization. That would be you. We've got the Athletic Booster Club here with us this evening.
Hi.
Hello.
I'm Alicia Ripperger, and I am the new president of the Athletic Booster Club. And tonight with me I have Jamie McLeod, who was our president last year. And she's been with the program much longer than a lot of us. This year we have pretty much a whole brand new board, and using her wisdom to help us make things. Tonight, I believe the financials were sent to you from the Booster Club from last year. Do you guys have copies of those? Okay, well, I'll go over them verbally. So we had an income of $130,120.91, and that is through concessions and some of our other fundraisers, programs, those kinds of things. We had an increase in our concessions this year due to some efficiencies that we put in place. We had a new product, the 32-ounce cups. They went like wildfire, much more than we ever thought they would go. And we did some product control so that we were not having product loss and overhead. We also increased our social media presence, and we had the Centennial Meal Deal that seemed to be a big deal as well. So we ended up with the buses, payroll, concession expenses. We had also an increased giving to the athletic department for a track timing machine. That was a significant dollar amount. And so we had expenses of $122,682.50. And we came up with a net income of $7,441.41. And then, so to get us started for the year, we have $62,647.68 in both of our accounts, the savings and our regular bank account. And so that is enough to get us started with bus maintenance and getting the concessions started off. We like to have a little bit of a cushion in place in case anything happens. Any questions about the financials? No? Okay, perfect. This year, our goal we have, so our mission is obviously to promote athletic excellence, a positive community image, and supporting our competitive programs by providing financial assistance. and support our student athletes, coaches, staff, and activity department through fundraising and community donation programs. And so this year we have 3 main goals that we want to focus on, and that we feel like lend to our mission. So the first one is the increased membership. Right now we're a body of 11 people, and we're manning all of these things with the bus management and the concessions, and so we want to really reach out and get some membership. So we have the kickoff event, which hopefully you guys have seen on Facebook, and we have that coming. That's to celebrate all athletes. We're inviting the entire community. We're also inviting businesses to be a part of that, and it's kind of an enhancement of our prior fundraiser where we did the programs. So we're still doing the programs, but this way they get FaceTime as well. So they're going to have booths that they can set up at the track. We are also, with increased partnership with the athletic department, inviting groups from any of the athletic teams that have fundraisers or things that they want to sell, that they can come and also use that for fundraising. So it is ideal for fundraising for us, fundraising for the individual teams that have current needs, and then also getting our people that are buying programs, program ads, a chance to get some FaceTime, as well as being published in the 3 ads. So we're really hoping for a big kickoff, and I would also like to extend an invite to the administration to be there and to be a face of the Wildcats. And if you are willing to help, you can email me, because that would be fabulous. Our 11 people are stretched pretty thin. So I've partnered with Coach Maxwell too. He's recruiting some coaches to help with that too. So, and then our second one is a formal plan for the buses. The buses are starting to age, and we need to get a formal plan established, whether to replace or what we need to do. We need to figure out what's financially the right thing to do, what's going to be supportive of our mission, and so we have a team working on that as well, in coordination with Coach Maxwell, and we talked with Mr. Managing last night as well on some of the legalities. And then we also have a increased partnership with the athletics and continue to enhance efficiencies. Those are our 3 main goals for the year, and that's pretty much it. Any questions?
So does the Booster Club still have a program? Past, I know that we had a plan in place. We saved up our funds to replace the bus or repair. So is that one of your goals? That's your...
So we're looking at, we're planning on 2 major fundraisers, the one being this first kickoff, and then the second one being something in the spring. And the idea, depending upon our income based off of mostly football, most of our income comes from football concessions. So depending upon how the season goes, how attendance is, that second fundraiser, we plan that would mostly be allocated to some sort of a bus plan once we get that in place. Any other questions? Thank you.
Well, just a comment. Thank you, particularly when there's only 11 of you. It's a critical job, and it's a big job.
It is a big job. Last year was my first year, and I had no idea. I took on the purchasing, and it was like a second full-time job. So,
well, it is appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia.
No, you don't.
All right. Moving on to the MSBA delegate. Gina, have you got anything?
I do. Forgot to turn to that page. Hold on. I just have a couple things. In 2018, Missouri legislature passed a number of laws that'll be in effect in August of 2018. So for any of you that are interested, if you didn't see this already in your emails from MSBA, they are offering some free webinars about some of these specific laws that are going to directly affect the district. So if you're interested in watching any of those free webinars, you have to have your user ID password, and there are 4 of them, and the first one starts the 17th. Is that today?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the first one was today. But just kind of a heads up, if that's something you're interested in, board members, take a look at that. Also, the new state budget, dedicates $300,000 to address school safety. However, last I heard, which was the date of this email, which was July 3rd, I believe, and Paul may have Mr. Minchie might have an update. They were still trying to work out the details of how that's going to be distributed throughout the districts. $300,000 sounds like a lot of money, but when you distribute it to all of the districts in our state, it is not necessarily a lot for each district. And then finally, just as a reminder, board members, MSBA does have several levels of certification if you're interested. We have our basic certification we get when we're new, and then there's advanced, distinguished, and master. So if anybody's interested in any of that, you can get that on the MSBA website as well. And that's it.
Thank you, Gina. Okay. Assessment and evaluation of district programs.
Revenues recorded for the general fund and special revenue fund combined exceed budget estimates by about 0.6% at year end, which equates to about $160,000. These were from the overages were mainly from property tax, adult tuition, interest earnings. The ECSE reimbursement was greater than we'd expected. Career ed and all the federal grants exceeded the proposed budgets. Expenditures for the general fund and the special revenue funds were amended to allow for the budgets to more closely meet the actual variances. And once those amendments were posted, actual expenditures are posted at 96.5% of budget. And then the difference is going to cover that transfer that we need to make from general fund to special revenue fund for the teachers' salaries. And total cash and investments are $11,213,805 for June.
All right.
Questions? This is just a preliminary report. We will have the final it'll probably be September before we see the actual final numbers for June once the audit's done. Audit will be the last week of August.
Kathy. School board operating principles. We need a motion.
I'll move that we approve the 2018-19 school board operating principles as presented.
Second. Any discussion? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? New procedures for attendance. We need a motion.
I move to approve the new procedure for attendance beginning with the 18-19 school year as presented.
And a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Well, lots of discussion, I suspect, so I'll start the ball rolling. First of all, thank you to Mr. Wiegers and our board members and the other folks, Mr. Grantham, and I've read the list and now forgot all the names, but all the folks that invested all of their time in this. To echo what I believe Ms. Carl said, I don't think there's anybody in this room that does not doubt the reality that there is a direct correlation between attendance and student achievement. This is, in my view, a great plan, but I have a lot of heartburn with the graduation piece of it. Just a quick anecdotal story to kind of get you to understand why this hits me so difficult or so hard. When I was a college student, I was probably a typical college student, went off to university to set the world on fire and discovered that there were other things like girls and beer and cars and lots of distractions that were there. And so the result of my first several years were that I was a very average student. A C was a win for me. At some point during my college career, I was offered and accepted a job working for the Boy Scouts of America. The guy who hired me sat me down and said, "We want to hire you, but understand in this career field, in order to advance, you must have a degree. So you must complete your degree." Okay, no problem, I'll do that. That was in January. In September of that same year, he came back to me and said, we're going to move you we're going to promote you. And it was a great promotion. It was internal, so they could get away with it within the Boy Scouts personnel policies. Increased my salary by probably 70%. So, of course, I said, yes, I'll do that. The caveat was, in order to do this, I had to move. And I moved a good 70 miles from where I was going to school. My boss and I sat down, and I was already, school had started. I explained, here's the problem. I've got this schedule, and it's going to be tough. And we agreed, pardon me, I would drop those classes that semester. The following semester, get a new schedule that worked with what I had to do and where I had to be and so forth. So I did that. And he actually, this is before cell phones and the internet and all of that, he actually, while I was sitting in his office, called the school and asked what is the last day to drop classes without a penalty. And he got the date, whatever it was. And we didn't have cell phones, of course, so I opened up my day timer and I wrote it down on whatever Monday it was. On that Monday, I showed up at the university to drop those classes. And they told me, that was last week. That was last Monday. So at this point, all of a sudden, because of my own carelessness, I was in a situation where an already 2-point barely GPA student now took 15 hours of zeros averaged into my GPA. Well, as you can imagine, that made me a 1-point really ugly student. The University of Texas, as do most universities, I'm sure, require to graduate with a degree, you must have at least a 2.0. The net result of this was I wound up in a situation where I had 48 more hours that I had to complete to graduate. I could get 1B. Everything else had to be an A. And that average then would equate to a 2.01, which is, by the way, my GPA that I'll live with forever. So because of my carelessness, I put myself in this position. This was nobody's fault but mine. But here I was, a now 25 or so year old individual who has had the epiphany and understood the importance and the value of what I was doing. And I made it work because it was possible for it to work for me. However, had I had one more class in the semester that I dropped and got zeros averaged in, it would not have been possible for me to get my GPA up to a standard that would allow me to graduate, even though almost all of the classes in my major and some of the others, I had a 4.0 or 3.98, whatever it worked out to with the 1B that I got. Graduation, I say this, I'm telling this story to illustrate this point. I had the epiphany. Graduation is a celebration where we as a district celebrate our students meeting the requirements for graduation. We celebrate with them. It's their opportunity to celebrate as well, obviously, and their families, but it's ours as well. They've done well. I am in absolute agreement with the extracurricular component of this, all of the other pieces, but at the point of graduation, at that point, on that date, there is no more incentive. That's their last activity period in high school. And this seems to me to cross the line from constructive to punitive. Or it could, I should say it could, in instances where we have kids who genuinely do figure it out at some point and understand, hey, education, graduation is important. Yes, we all know as adults the diploma is what's important, and I recognize they still get the diploma under this process if they complete the graduation requirements, but they miss out on all of us saying to them, congratulations, job well done. And in my view, I think that's a disservice to us and to those kids. That said, I'm going to enter a motion to amend the motion to approve the new procedure for attendance beginning with the 2018-19 school year with the graduation component removed.
Okay, we've got a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? For the two of you that were on the committee, what kind of feedback do you have?
Well, the feedback we've heard tonight, at all the committee meetings, it was discussed at great length, and it was, in my opinion, the committee's was in agreement with this policy, or we would not have presented it. Everyone on the committee was in agreement with it. We discussed it a lot. There was back and forth. There were many concerns about students who, at the level where the level that is the worst attendance percentage is the seniors at the high school. So that was one of the reasons that we put this into place, because the seniors, I think it's like 10% less than the other classes, if I'm not, am I remembering right, Mr. Wiggers? But I just remember the senior class was the very worst for attendance, and that was one of the reasons this is being presented, because they're the ones that it affects. Their attendance drops the whole building's attendance down, which in turn drops the whole district's attendance down.
I guess the question that I've got, and I understand your thought process, Mr. Johnson brought up, you now have students that have been in the school district for 12 years. They're going to be in the job force for 49 years if they had normal retirement. Are we preparing them? You need to get the attention. You need to say, this is serious. You know, okay, I missed school, take the day off, I got 18 days, no big deal. But the other piece, like in my business, like most of you probably, the expectation when you come to work for me, come to work for our company, is that you're going to have approximately 17 days. You'll have 10 days of vacation, you'll have 7 days of sick leave, you'll have some holidays as well. But that's where you start out. That's what the expectation is coming out of school, the day one you hit the ground running. I'm not convinced our kids are prepared for that. We've got testimony that says some are, some aren't. We got to get their attention somehow. And do I want to be in a position where one of my grandkids misses enough days that they can't walk? No, because it was a very proud moment when all my kids walked. But I also understand there's bigger life lessons that we're trying to teach kids. And, 12 years versus 49 years, we build those habits now. They'll be successful going forward. They'll be leaders in our community. They'll be those type of citizens that we want. We don't build them now, we're going to have challenges. And I don't see that in my business because the type of business I'm in, people show up, but a lot of people don't, and it makes it very difficult. So again, I understand the punitive piece. I really feel for people if they don't get to walk, but I'd also ask the question for everybody sitting out here in the audience. If you graduated from high school, do you remember getting your diploma? Do you remember who handed it to you? Do you remember anything about that event?
I sure do.
Okay. Okay.
And the cords around my neck.
Okay. So that is something then that is important to individuals. My case, I can remember getting the diploma, but beyond that, I think I was already focused on what's my next step in life. Where am I going beyond that? So, again, I pose that question just for people that,
And I would just like to reiterate, 17 days of unexcused absences. We're not talking about when you have to go miss school for a doctor's appointment or braces or whatever, we all have to do with our children. These are unexcused absences. 17 days. That's a lot of days to miss in one school year. It's a lot of days.
I want to point out, Nancy, if you don't mind, that also there was a question, and I had a few questions. One of the questions I had was about the school nurse, and I asked Mr. Wiegers, and he gladly responded that it does. So if a student is sent home, and I know this is a concern, some people say it's just a virus, and a lot of times it is a virus. It's a flu. You don't take your kid to the doctor. Well, the nurse sends them home. It does not count against that 17 days of unexcused. That counts as a medical.
And I think that's great to know. I mean, I don't think that we discussed that during our committee meetings, but I think that's huge. That's huge. It goes against the argument of, well, they can't get a doctor's note signed and all of that. I mean, that speaks right to that, in my opinion. Bing, would you like to share?
I think overall.
I have a couple comments. And
Hold on,
Hang
hold
on
on
a
just
minute.
a second, Gina. Hold on. Bing's
I
going.
can't hear very well.
I'll yield
so.
the floor to Gina. Go ahead. It's too complicated back and forth. Thank you. Go ahead, Gina.
If I repeat something somebody else has said, then I apologize. I don't hear real well. My comment or my message is, regardless of the procedure that we approve tonight or disapprove, we really have to look at it. And if we approve it with or without the celebration of graduation, we really have to look at the root cause. We've got to figure out what's causing these kids that are missing 70 days to miss 70 days. And we need to monitor, and we need to have some things in place to help those kids. My guess is if a kid misses 70 days, and 70 is at the max.
17.
No, but she's saying 4 years.
Oh, for 4 years?
So
72.
68. Yeah.
That'd be 68. But
If a student misses 68 days that are
17 would
unexcused,
still make it 18.
and probably some that are excused, are they going to pass anyway?
unknown.
And Gina, can you hear me, Gina?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
We have to make sure our teachers are teaching bell to bell. We need to make sure our students engaged. We need to make sure that we do set that bar high so the kids want to be there and are afraid to miss or don't want to miss because they're challenged. So I have some opinions about some of the pieces of it. However, I do feel like we need to be aggressive in how we deal with attendance, but mostly how we deal with the education of our student, whatever way we do it. I have some stories when I was administrator of some kids that missed a lot of days for reasons that would break your heart, but eventually did get to graduate. I don't know that it was 68 days, but did get to graduate and were the first ones in their family that graduated. And I remember the look on their face and the tears in my eyes. So I just want to make sure that whatever we do, this isn't the end, that we continue to monitor, we continue to figure out what that cause is, and we look at each kid individually that has multiple days.
I know that when we were in the work sessions and in the committee meetings, that was one of the things that we had. Gina brought up the point getting down to the root cause, and basically there's just a certain percentage of the students that are dragging the attendance down, and so I don't think we were able to put our finger on exactly what it was. Was it transportation they were having trouble with getting to school? Was it something where they had to get a younger sibling on the bus that came first, and then there was different issues that we were trying to tackle. I'd like to see this go back to that committee, if possible, getting the input that we've had from the community, bringing up different ideas. The perks issue, I think, was brought up as one, and maybe come back with something different. Put everybody's thoughts together and just kind of come up with another one.
I think the concern with doing that is we've got to approve something tonight for them to get an attendance policy in place for next year. Otherwise, next month is too late because school will have started. So I think for us to proceed, we can definitely amend the policy so we can vote on it with Chris's amendment and work on the graduation piece, maybe compile some more data through the year, keep the committee going to get that data compiled. But I think we have to make some kind of a move tonight if we want to be able to monitor this the way that we should monitor it. Unfortunately, and again, I think the committee needs to continue to be a living organism, but I think we have to do something tonight. Would that be an accurate statement?
Right, and I'd like to I thank Marcy for her comments, because it is tough when you've only been on the job 17 days. But as I expressed to her that we, time is of the essence. What I explained to her is I look back at it as if I were here the previous year, and if we're going to attack an issue that is a very severe issue in the district, and that is attendance. I mean, the numbers are there before you. I think Jill did a good job of explaining the problems. You have 24% of your kids that aren't not meeting that standard. In the high school, that's a big number, and so the committee did a lot of extensive work in addressing that. And so, in my opinion, if I were here, I would have instituted that committee with key stakeholders. They would have gone through that process, introduced it to the Board of Education, and brought it for a decision. So, without being part of that process, I can still say that the process and the people involved, I think we honor that process, because I think in the future, if we want to address key issues in a similar fashion, if we want people to volunteer and serve on those type of committees, we have to honor their service by saying, we appreciate what you have done, and now we're going to take that recommendation to the board for action. So that's my purpose, is to bring it to the board for action. And so, and it has to, because of the timeliness of school starting, we do need something tonight. So it does, 17 days, it does put you in kind of a pinch. So, but again, I have faith in those people that took part in that process. So,
and if I may then, and Dan, you may be able to answer this for me, or Mark, but if we have a student who's falling behind in their attendance, we currently have procedures in place, I would assume, to reach out to the families, letters, phone calls. So we're already making attempts to bring it to their attention, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And just in your opinion, if you're dealing with them, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but also I'm trying to get an opinion on this, is the absence do you feel is more of a medical related, or do you even have a way to base it off of that?
No, not really, because when we started to look into that, the coding between not having a doctor's note or just saying you were at something, we have to improve upon the communication of what's needed for that.
The coding by the attendance secretaries.
Right, or whether you have if they come back with a doctor's note, then that would be excused. Others saying I just went to the doctor, that's coded somewhere else. So.
So given what we've heard, it sounds like, I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but it sounds like, number one, we all agree it's a critical issue, and number two, we all agree that the majority of this process or set of procedures is good. The point of concern is what the motion on the floor is, the graduation piece. Would it not make sense to amend the motion, remove that piece, do the data tracking, continue the process that we want to start, and then have the attendance committee review next year? Do we need to add this component back? Is it, what are our results? Do further evaluation? I
don't know how you would quantify the results if the piece isn't in there.
Well, I think you can only do it from an empirical perspective. You're not going to be able to identify individual student issues, but we should be able to tell, just comparing statistically last year to this year, whether we've seen an improvement. And I would assume we would, even with or without the graduation component.
Okay. There's something, and there's already pieces in place for this year outside of this, like having a person at the high school dedicated to track attendance, okay, for half the day, and in an administrative fashion, and so that will help. We are going to reinstitute our campaign, an attendance campaign district-wide, about the importance of attendance, and we've gotten away from that in the last couple of years where we didn't have it at the forefront, so it's going to be at everybody's attention. And so, as a community and as a district, we've identified this as a problem, and so there's steps in besides just this policy, or excuse me, this procedure, which sorry, I misspoke there.
Do we have a process to address the question about how do we monitor who is allowed to go participate? Do we have that we're comfortable we could implement that part of it effectively?
And just to clarify, Leanne, just so you know too, it wasn't to attend the games, or the activities, it's to participate in them. So if there's a football game on a Friday night, people can attend that no matter what their attendance, but they wouldn't be able to participate in it if you're a player.
And here's my issue with that. I'm fine with that. I'm perfectly fine with that. But I don't think we have exceptions to rules on something like this. If we're going to do this, it has to be across the board, good for everybody. It's good for one, it's good for all. So I don't have a problem with that policy at all, because any sport that my daughter and son has ever been in, the coaches have monitored this. And they will set out games if your grades are bad or your attendance is bad. So I don't have a problem with that, as long as it's fair and across the board.
Right. I just want to clarify that it is the ability to participate, not to attend in the procedure.
So we could watch that for a year then and see if those steps hit home enough to change behaviors to improve attendance, then maybe we don't have to go another step. If it doesn't change it, then we'll be back here having the same kind of discussions.
I throw out that it's not our students who participate in sports or activities that are our attendance issue. It's not those students that are going to be affected by this procedure at all.
I'm sorry, Mr. Wiggins, could you repeat that? I missed a few words.
I would say that the
historically,
our students who are active, who are in sports or in clubs or activities, those aren't the attendance issues.
Oh. I thought that was Gina.
Sometimes Siri picks the weirdest times to talk to us.
Thank you. I heard it the second time, with or without the apology at the end.
Well, and back to my point, I think that we had, what was it, Nancy, 4 meetings?
I think 4.
I don't know if that was necessarily the right amount of meetings to have. Maybe they need to be ongoing because of the issue that we can keep track of each month. It seems to be a moving target, if you will.
Well, I think that's what Tina said. She wants to continue this. But I think at the end of those 4 meetings, everyone, I thought, was in agreement that this is what we wanted presented to the board. Isn't that correct?
That's how I remember it. Everyone, we went around, no one really had,
Nobody.
We had hashed out these conversations and,
right.
Knowing it's a starting point to trying to address
yes.
a challenge we're having.
Do we have a sense how many it might have affected had it been in place this year? And I know our statistics are going to be suspect somewhat.
Wouldn't know until it was implemented.
And I think that was a coding issue, because I asked Jill that same question. So Jill went and did a little data analysis. Talked to Diane, and Diane said because of the way the coding is, it was an estimate. Jill thought maybe 5 or 6 is what, but that's a very rough estimate.
So in the case of 5 or 6 students, at that point, if it's a matter of taking a sibling to the doctor's office, because that is the reality of some of our students is that they have to help co-parent younger siblings. So in that particular event, is there something that the district could do to help in that situation to get that kid to school? Are there I mean, certainly there's got to be some kind of concession that can be made for that student, whether it's, and I don't know how DESE would quantify this, but is there an evening class that they could take that could give them that credit? Does it have to be from 7:30 to 3 o'clock? Is there a way around that for that kid that would have to miss for that kind of extenuating circumstance?
So what I can tell you is, I mean, there are procedures in place within the school district. The Wildcat Academy is one, the GED option plan. So there's things in place to help with those kids that are in that issue. I will tell you that this policy is already, or procedure, not policy, procedure, is already more liberal than what DESE would allow for those excused absences. So, for example, DESE doesn't care if it's excused or unexcused.
Okay.
That 90 of 90 is absences.
Right.
It's not excused or unexcused. So the procedure in itself is already more allowable. It's just trying to set the bar a little bit higher.
A little bit higher. Okay.
And I know the district that this is modeled after had seen great improvement after this was adopted, which was encouraging to the committee because it did make a difference. It did make an improvement in attendance.
But I'm sorry, were you going to?
Well, no, as I say, I did check with a couple of neighboring school districts, and one of the students, parents that I asked in one, theirs is 10 days. They have a 10-day per year excused or unexcused absence, where they don't participate in the graduation exercises. So I thought, we're 17, and theirs was 10. So now I didn't get into the what their excuses were. You know, maybe it was maybe a little more liberal or something. But also the other thing, and as I'm sitting here pondering this, and I see it both ways. And I do remember my graduation ceremony, but I also was checked out and ready to go to college. I'm also thinking I'm very fortunate. Both my kids were good students, good athletes, went to school, but it was also an expectation. Mother and education, you know, you can't have my kids playing hooky when I'm a principal myself, you know, was mom's attitude. But we had that expectation, but it was also, sometimes I look at it and I say the kids that follow the rules, you do everything correct, then somebody who circumvents everything gets the same reward I get. What the heck? Why didn't I take my 16 days off and sit at home and do nothing? But I also understand the hardships out there with other families and some of the issues. So I do see both sides to that. Graduation's the pinnacle piece of it. So,
Well, I guess
I have a question when it's my turn.
Go ahead, Gina.
My question is the 5 or 6 students that were identified that missed the maximum number of days last year or over the last 4 years. My question is, if they missed 60 days unexcused, did they all earn the credits to graduate? That's one question I have. And secondly, for those 5 kids, I'm curious if this procedure or policy, if we make it a policy, is something that would have changed the number of days that they missed. Would those 5 kids, if they didn't get the opportunity to walk or participate in a sport or a club, would they have made better choices about their attendance?
I don't think we can go on with that.
Gina, I don't know if I don't know if it was, I don't know if it was based on 1 year. I didn't ask Jill that, and unfortunately she's not here tonight. But I don't know if it was based on 1 year. In other words, the 17 or the 18 absences in 1 year, or whether they were looking at the 4 year total. So I'm not sure on that question.
Mark, would you know the answer to that?
I don't know those students.
And I don't think we took the data down to identify
Right.
students. It was just a number that this many students would have been above that
Right.
or below that.
Chris, you need to move it over a little more.
No problem. Well, final thought from me on this, and then I promise I'll stop. Is Doug, you made a couple of really great points, but you used the word reward. In my feeble mind, I agree. I look at the ability to participate in extracurricular activities, field trips, and the other stuff. Yes, that's the reward. Graduation is earned, so this is not a reward. I'm having trouble calling commencement exercises a reward. That's a celebration of something that's earned. So maybe a distinction without a difference.
From the education standpoint, as a principal, it's a reward. It's a privilege to walk at graduation. To earn a diploma, you earn the diploma. The graduation ceremony, from the principal standpoint, I could be wrong, is a reward or a privilege to be that is taken away for many different reasons periodically.
Point taken.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Most people don't. Most parents don't. And as a parent, I know, when my kid gets there, they earn that.
Right. Well, and from a parent's perspective, to counter I said I was going to shut up, didn't I? I won't belabor it. Your point is taken.
Yeah.
And I just keep going back to, and we talked about this in May. It's come up several times tonight, but we have to get these kids ready for whatever workforce they're going into, whether it's college, whether it's a trade, whatever it is. And are we educationally doing them a service if we don't try to buckle down on that attendance policy so they get a better education? And are we doing them a disservice if we allow them to miss 17 days? Because again, at my job, if I have 17 unexcused absences, I'm going to be unemployed. I'm not going to be able to work there. I have 2 weeks of vacation. I have sick time. These kids have Christmas vacation, spring break, and 2.5 months off in the summertime, and then we're going to allow them to miss 17 days during the school year? I'm struggling with that somebody, and they need the support at home, and my children are lucky they have it, your children are lucky they had it. This is how we're going to support our kids, to teach them to be responsible, and sometimes responsibility hurts. I mean, it just does. When your kid lies and you make them go tell the person they lied to that they lied to them, that hurts. It hurts you, the parent, it hurts the child. You know that's not something they want to do, but they're not going to lie again. So you have to hold them accountable, and if their parents can't do that, it has to fall to us.
Well, another thing, Tina, is we are preparing them for work. Everybody knows I dedicated my career on preparing kids for work, regardless of which pathway they took. But it's not just about that one graduation ceremony celebration piece. It's everything. It's the campaign that Dan referred to. It's figuring out what that root cause is. Doing that root cause analysis, figuring out what it is, monitoring it, giving them rewards, giving them privileges, taking away privileges. So it's not just dependent upon whether they get to celebrate or not. So I don't want to get hung up on if we vote or don't vote to approve the policy with or without the graduation piece, that's going to take away that part or that incentive for people to do well. Because it's the teacher's responsibilities too to make sure the students are engaged, they're challenged, the bar is high, they're learning, because that's going to get kids into classrooms too. So it's not just that one piece. So I don't think we can get hung up just on that one piece. We'll change it for those 5 kids that reach that number, or those 10, or how many ever might. So some of those kids that miss 10 a month, they can still miss 10 or 12 a month and celebrate. But the others that didn't, and they somehow miraculously pass after missing 68, almost 70 days unexcused, Where's the problem? Is it us? Because it's not rigorous enough of a curriculum that they can miss that many days? Or is it them? Or is it their parents? Or lack of? So there are a lot of things to consider. This isn't easy, I know.
And I don't want to look at it as we're penalizing them by not allowing them to walk. We're rewarding them with the ability to be responsible. So it's not that moment in time, because all I remember about my graduation is I wore really awesome shoes. I mean, that's... So to me, it's beyond what that graduation moment meant. It was what that next step was, that what I was looking forward to the next step.
And that's exactly why I pulled this out as an amendment motion rather than an up-down on the policy. I mean, the procedure. I did it now.
So I believe the
Policy
way that the
procedure.
rules state, we read several different things to verify that we were correct. So with the new motion being on the floor, we have to vote on that. We have to vote unanimously on that. If we do not vote unanimously, it goes back to the original motion and we vote on that.
Okay. I didn't realize that.
I did not either. I learned.
I wondered what you were digging through Roberts for.
That's what we're reading in Roberts here.
You threw a wrench in the process there.
Oh, well, it's
So
good
we
for
have
everybody.
a motion and a second on the amended motion. Should we
Do we
do?
want to repeat the motion?
Yes, if I have it, Chris can let me know if I have it correctly. To approve the new procedures for attendance beginning with the 2018-19 school year with the graduation component removed.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Should we do roll call or?
Probably wouldn't hurt.
Probably wouldn't hurt. Okay.
Nancy?
No.
Doug? Bing?
Yes.
Tina?
No.
Chris?
Yes.
Doug? Oh, sorry, Gina. Hi, Gina. Is she
Uh-oh.
there? Hello. We have lost Gina. Lost.
There she's back.
No, that's
Nope,
me.
That's us. Never mind.
Lost connection. She may be trying again here. Hang on.
Just a second.
Got hair back?
Gina, are you there?
There you go.
No, it's still us.
No.
It says we're back.
Gina, can you hear us?
If you can get her, I'll have you repeat it because she was. There
There
we
she
go.
is.
Oh, you're back. Can you hear us?
I don't think she can. It is really weird having that there.
Gina, can you hear me? Looks like we're connected, but I'm not seeing her.
Can we, under I've forgotten how the law is written, can we get her on a voice
Yes,
call
you can.
a little bit?
Yes.
Okay.
You can use speakerphone.
That'd be easier.
Not right at the moment. She says she's trying to call. Yeah, it's common in, I think.
Hey. Can we? That's okay. Can we put you on speakerphone?
Got her.
Okay. Okay. All right, Gina, you're.
Gina, I lost Lynn, you said we were explaining what our next step is or the procedure is from this point on.
Okay, so the way that the procedure works is that we've got an amended motion. So we all have to vote on the amended motion. It's got to pass unanimously. If it doesn't, then it goes back to the original motion that was on the floor. So we're taking a roll call. I'm sorry.
Can you remind me of that amended motion?
Yes.
Tina, the amended motion is to approve the new procedure for attendance beginning with the 2018-19 school year with the graduation component removed.
Thank you.
And right now you're next to do the roll call vote. Right now we are at 3 noes, 2 yeses.
Yes.
Doug?
I'm going to vote no on the amended.
Motion fails.
So now we'll go back to the original motion.
Which is to approve the new procedure for attendance beginning with the 2018-19 school year as presented.
Okay. And we'll need another roll call vote on that.
Doug Meyer.
Yes.
Bing.
No.
Tina.
Yes.
Chris.
No.
Gina.
No.
Doug Alexander.
Yes.
Nancy.
Yes.
Motion passes.
And that looks like that was the last item on the agenda, so now we need a motion to adjourn.
Make the motion that we adjourn the regular meeting.
Second.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? All right. Thank you, Gina.
You're welcome. Thank you all for being patient with me.
We got it.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.